In this video, we'll break down the forehand speed up off the bounce. We'll explore how to recognize the right ball to attack, and we'll talk about modern pickleball techniques that make this shot difficult to defend. Before a player can execute an effective forehand speed-up, the first step is understanding why the shot is being used. The objective of a speed-up is not simply to hit a winner. Instead, the goal is to initiate a short, fast exchange that favors the attacker. The purpose of the shot is to create controlled pressure. By speeding up the ball at the right moment, the attacker forces opponents into a defensive reaction and gains control of the next shot in the rally. Many players struggle with this concept because they attempt to attack too frequently. A common mistake is speeding up balls that are too low, moving too quickly, or arriving when the player is not balanced enough to handle the response. This is why the dink exchange exists in the first place. Players use dinking to build the rally patiently and wait for the correct opportunity to attack. The right ball provides the green light to accelerate the pace of the point. 3 cues help identify whether a ball is attackable. The first is height. Balls that sit higher above the net naturally provide a better attacking opportunity. The second cue is tempo. A slower or dead ball that sits up gives the attacker time to strike cleanly. The third cue is court balance. This includes evaluating the positioning of both teams to determine whether initiating a fast exchange creates an advantage. When these 3 conditions align, favorable height, slower tempo, and balanced positioning, the forehand speed-up becomes a high-percentage offensive play. Even with the correct ball to attack, execution depends heavily on body positioning and movement. Technique alone cannot compensate for poor positioning. If the feet are not set and the body is not balanced, the shot becomes difficult to control. The first key is getting behind the ball. Reaching toward the ball creates an off-balance swing and limits control over direction and spin. Instead, the player must move the feet so the body aligns directly behind the contact point. Positioning the body correctly allows the swing to travel through the ball rather than across it. This alignment creates both stability and control during contact. The second key involves loading the outside leg. On the forehand side, this typically means loading the right leg for right-handed players. This outside leg load provides balance and creates the foundation for power and forward movement through the shot. Without that load, players tend to lean forward or sideways rather than driving through the ball. Proper loading allows the body to remain stable and explosive. The third key is arriving early and staying low. Reaching the ball early gives the player time to hold the paddle momentarily before striking. This pause creates deception because the opponent cannot immediately determine the direction or speed of the shot. When players move efficiently, load the outside leg, and stay low, the forehand speed-up becomes significantly more reliable and deceptive. The forehand speed-up is rarely a single-shot solution. At higher levels of play, attackers expect a counterattack. This means the speed-up often begins a 2 or 3 shot sequence rather than ending the point immediately. Thinking in terms of combos helps players anticipate the next ball. The direction of the attack often influences where the counter will return. If the speed-up travels down the line, the likely counter will also come back in that direction. If the attack travels across the opponent's body, the return often follows that same path. Anticipating these patterns allows the attacker to position themselves for the next shot and prepare for a put-away. Another important factor is tempo control. Not every speed-up should be struck at full power. The best players vary their pace, often hitting attacks at around 60 to 80% of maximum speed. Changing the pace creates deception and disrupts the opponent's timing. When a player coils the body as if preparing for a powerful shot, but then delivers a slower attack, the opponent's reaction can be delayed. Placement is the final critical element. Attacking directly at the opponent's strongest defensive zone, usually the center of the body, often results in strong counters. Instead, attackers target awkward areas such as the right hip, the high right shoulder, or the wings. These locations force uncomfortable defensive responses and frequently lead to weaker returns. For example, the right hip is a particularly vulnerable area for many right-handed players. A ball directed just outside that hip forces a difficult defensive movement and can lead to a weak reply. Combining varied placements with controlled tempo and anticipation of the next shot transforms the forehand speed-up into a structured offensive sequence. The forehand speed-up off the bounce is one of the most powerful offensive tools in pickleball when used with discipline and precision. Proper body positioning, Getting behind the ball, loading the outside leg, and staying low creates the stability required for consistent execution. A compact coil, controlled contact point, and spin-focused swing path provide both deception and control. Finally, understanding combos, varying tempo, and targeting vulnerable locations turns the attack into a strategic sequence rather than a single swing. When these elements work together, the forehand speed-up becomes a reliable way to initiate winning exchanges.